Hello and welcome to episode 130 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. As always, I'm joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva. We are going to go team by team through each AFC franchise, talk some takeaways, waiver wire guys, role changes, anything else. Trade deadline is coming up here in an hour and 15 minutes. It is 2:45 p.m. Eastern. Will Fuller just tweeted a gif of the impatient kid kind of strumming his fingers. So he's waiting for something to happen. We're hoping he stays. Evan, what's going on?
Ready to get into it.
All right, let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. And some of the question leading up to this game was, hey, no Mark Ingram. How are they going to handle their running backs? J.K. Dobbins did outsnap Gus Edwards 54-26. Gus did leave briefly with a bit of a knee issue. Regardless, the carry split was still pretty even. Gus, 16 carries, Dobbins, 15. And with the way Lamar Jackson is playing, I just don't think there's much of receiving equity to be had from either. Speaking of the way Lamar is playing, Hollywood Brown is tilted. He tweeted and then deleted a tweet saying, I don't know what he was saying. He was just pissed. And so Lamar still has one game all season with 30 plus DK points. We all expected Lamar to regress. I understand it was a difficult spot against Pittsburgh, but we're going, halfway through the year here, and Lamar is barely even like a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I'm not saying anybody should bench him. I'm not saying anybody should trade him. He's still going to have huge games through his legs, but man, it's been really disappointing for Lamar. And what can we say besides he's not progressing as a thrower as a lot of people thought that he would? What did you see out of Baltimore's narrow loss to the Steelers?
Yeah, I think it's really just been the turnovers. That was not expected. I think the regression was expected. He's down from 7.8 yards per pass attempt last year to 7.1. He's still on pace for 28 touchdown passes. He's still on pace for 930 rushing yards. It's just the turnovers have been really hurting the Ravens offense. And cutting into, turnovers don't hurt that much in fantasy, but they do hurt a little bit, enough to bring down his scoring output on a weekly basis. And he's really been a boom or bust guy. He has been in the quarterback 16 through 18 range, or else he's had big games. And a lot of it has been matchup driven. So I don't know. I think the one thing that is disappointing is that the Ravens' pass attempts as a team have not really come up from last year, and that's hurting Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown. And Mark Andrews doesn't even have a 60-yard game all year. He's been entirely reliant on touchdowns. And then Marquise Brown, I think he'll probably be the squeaky wheel this week. But just the team pass volume has not come up like I think we probably would have expected, at even a little bit.
Yeah. For sure. And yeah, when you turn the ball over, your plays per game go down and you're giving the other team more possessions and you start to lose possessions, and then it turns into a problem in terms of volume. Buffalo Bills have a big game against Seattle this week. In week 8, I was a little bit surprised to see Zach Moss out-snap Devin Singletary 31-28. They each got 14 carries. They each ran the same amount of pass routes. Moss did get the scores. So, with the way they're using Josh Allen around the goal line and everything, it's just really hard to be excited about either of these guys, as we have talked about. But this is the spot, Evan. Everybody goes nuclear on Seattle except for Jimmy G. What is your outlook for the Bills this week?
Yeah, I think that these were our fears, sort of our preseason fears sort of realized for this Buffalo backfield. A lot of empty calorie touches for Devin Singletary. Zach Moss is in the driver's seat for scoring position work. He's got 9 touches on the season inside the 10, despite missing 3 games. Singletary's played in every game, only has 5 touches inside the 10. So Singletary is going to be a poor bet on a weekly basis to score touchdowns. Zach Moss is going to need touchdowns to score fantasy points because he's not getting a ton of work in the receiving game. And then Josh Allen, always a threat to vulture touchdowns from the members of the backfield.
Yeah, Josh Allen as a thrower, we've seen stuff to be concerned about over the last month or so, hopefully. And I think he has a pretty good chance to get right in one of the best possible spots, home against Seattle. And I know Jimmy G struggled. We talked about on the last podcast. Nick Mullins did not struggle at all against this Seattle defense once he got out there. So I have good hope for Josh Allen this week. Cincinnati Bengals, even in bad weather, even in wind and it was nasty, they give Joe Burrow another 37 pass attempts. He's on pace to break Andrew Luck's rookie record for the most passing yards in a season. And the way that they're using Joe Burrow just makes him a candidate to lead the entire slate in quarterback scoring every single week. Other thing that I noticed here was Samaje Perine played more than I had hoped. Samaje Perine stole 10 carries from Gio. He got a goal line carry and converted it, I believe. So that wasn't great. We'll see on Joe Mixon's status. What did you see out of Cincy's game against the Titans?
Yeah, pretty much everything that you saw. AJ Green still played a lot, but his target share went way down. T. Higgins continues to be truly their top perimeter receiver. Tyler Boyd continues to be highly consistent. Auden Tate, maybe as part of a trade showcase, received his most usage, caught 7 of 7 targets for 65 yards against the Titans. But we'll have to keep monitoring Joe Mixon's status. It didn't seem like it was going to be a serious injury at first, but now he's missed 2 games.
Yeah, from a strategy standpoint, I think all 3 of the Bengals receivers are going to project well on a week-to-week basis because there's so much volume. But in reality, only 2 of them typically are going to get there. It's going to take some outlier stuff for 3 of them to really be important guys. And so, a lot of people had AJ Green this week because he was the cheapest. Obviously, in a vacuum, you want the younger, better guys in Higgins and Boyd. But, it's just something to keep in mind. Cleveland Browns. In the first game without Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield drops back 29 times. Routes run were Jarvis Landry 25, Rashard Higgins 23, Kadero Hodge comes off the injured list, runs 22. Donovan Peoples-Jones barely plays with 2. They have a bye coming up, and then maybe they get Nick Chubb back. They'll almost certainly get Austin Hooper back. It was a really ugly, nasty, windy game between Cleveland and Vegas. What did you see?
Yeah, I just can't have a whole lot of takeaways from that game because of the way that both teams played as sort of maybe a preventative measure due to the weather. Mm-hmm. Neither quarterback topped 24 pass attempts. Baker Mayfield had 25, but only completed 12. Derek Carr only completed 15. Josh Jacobs got a massive workload, and he's averaging 24 touches per game. Now his bye is out of the way. I think that he was an early season sell after that week 1 game against Carolina. Now I think he's back to being a buy. Oh, yeah. In season long leagues. Darren Waller still the go-to guy for Derek Carr.
For sure. Denver Broncos, the thing with the Albert O play, and I know Albert O was reasonably popular in DFS, it was like, well, we were hoping if we played Albert O that Noah Fant would actually be limited. But Noah Fant wasn't limited. I mean, he wasn't on the injury report on Friday. And so he looked pretty healthy to me. Albert O got there, though. He only played 16 out of 65 snaps. Albert O gets there, though, by scoring a 9-yard touchdown on his only target. Other thing I noticed, and I played Jerry Jeudy in the 4 p.m. slate, wasn't great for me, but did lead the entire NFL in air yards this week with no Tim Patrick, obviously no Courtland Sutton, et cetera, et cetera. What do you see out of the Broncos game against the Chargers?
Phillip Lindsay just looks so much better than Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon continues to get a lot more touches, a lot more playing time, but he was severely outplayed in this game by Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay's vision, his burst, his ability to just like find a hole and hit it like with velocity. I think it is so much more impressive than Melvin Gordon when you watch them play. Mm-hmm. So while Melvin Gordon is receiving more usage right now, I do wonder if the backfield could devolve into more of a 50-50 time share based on Phillip Lindsay's outperformance of Melvin Gordon.
Yep. Okay. Houston Texans were on a bye. We're still waiting for trade deadline news. Brandon Cooks has been rumored. Randall Cobb has been rumored. Will Fuller has been heavily rumored. What we do know is they play the Jaguars on Sunday and one of the best possible matchups. So if we get some news here while we're still on the podcast, we'll certainly talk about it. But otherwise, it sounds like we'll see. Maybe they're going to end up standing pat. Anything on Houston as they come out of their bye other than the trade stuff?
No, this will be a really good spot, I think, for David Johnson. David Johnson has consistently seen, in the range of 18 touches. He's not back to his, Arizona Cardinals dynamic self, but he's played well enough that I think he can have a real solid game against the Jaguars, who are just getting crushed by the run.
All right. A lot going on with the Colts because Jonathan Taylor, essentially was benched. And then after the game, they say, well, actually, he had a bit of an ankle issue. But I think in reality, he's just been so bad. And Jordan Wilkins, who, it's important to pay close attention because Jordan Wilkins was a threat, man. I mean, Jordan Wilkins was inactive the previous 2 games before the bye, comes back and ends up starting and getting like 20 touches. So, I think they're going to continue to use a 3-man backfield, and JT is just, when he gets chances, he's not been effective with them, and his chances are very volatile on a week-to-week basis because he's getting outplayed by Jordan Wilkins. So I don't know if you'd see anything on JT. How can a guy who's was such an amazing prospect with such an amazing offensive line fail so badly? And then I also want to get your take on the wide receivers because T.Y. Hilton is now hurt.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor's been a big disappointment. I think that Jordan Wilkins, at least for the short-term future, is going to be the favorite for carries in the Colts backfield. Jonathan Taylor will still mix in, and then Nyheim Hines will remain like the passing down specialist. But Nyheim Hines is only seeing like 5 to 9 touches a game. Taylor's usage has now been de-escalated, and Jordan Wilkins isn't used in the passing game. So we're now to the point of a true 3-man committee, and it's going to be hard to decipher between these guys. Like, is anyone going to be a good fantasy play among these 3?
Yeah, and we see the same thing at tight end. I mean, Burton, Mo Alley, and Doyle are all playing also. And then at wide receiver, though, is what I want to talk about because it's getting thinned out. T.Y. Hilton and Ashton Doolin both got
we know
hurt.
You want to talk about T.Y. Hilton.
Well, at least T.Y. Hilton's gone now. I don't want to talk about him anymore. He's gone.
You made sure to have a tweet about him on Monday after he rips his groin off the bone, dancing on the poor dude's grave. Marcus Johnson can play, though. Marcus Johnson is one of these dudes that just went undrafted. He's bounced around. No team ever committed anything to him. So, but when he has gotten opportunities, he's been productive. I mean, his chemistry with Phillip Rivers has been far superior to Phillip Rivers' chemistry with T.Y. Hilton so far this year.
And I think a lot of people on Waiver Wire are going to spend for Michael Pittman. You could slide in with a much cheaper bid, I think, for Marcus Johnson and probably get him. We know Zach Pascal is there also, but Pittman did come back and play most of the game. I don't love this pass game in general, but at least it's getting thinned out among the wide receivers. All right, Jacksonville is going to start Jake Luton. Gardner Minshew turns out has a fracture in his throwing thumb. He's out indefinitely. And they said, well, Mike Glennon was the backup for the whole year, but they want to see what they have in Jake Luton. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right. Tell the people what you know about Jake Luton, Evan, who will be starting against the Texans on Sunday.
Kind of reminded me of like a poor man's Jared Goff coming out of Oregon State. Was criticized by the draft community for being like a check down oriented passer. He's really old. He's almost 25 years old. And he is just non-existent in terms of athleticism. Ran a 5'1", 240, rushed for like minus 200 rushing yards over his final 2 seasons, 4th percentile spark athlete. I was surprised that the Titans or that the Jaguars have like a 21 or 22 point team total, even against the Texans, who are really bad on defense. I'm surprised that game, the total is still 51. I don't like to bet unders, but might consider it there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, these Texans games have gotten so wild. I think that's at least part of it, but can it get wild with Jake Luton is at least worth noting. And yeah, I assume that you think this is bad news for DJ Chark, although DJ Chark wasn't exactly blowing the doors off with Gardner Minshew. Any hope for people who have DJ Chark in season long?
It's just a situation. I don't think you can use him or Keelan Cole or any of their receivers this week in season long. You just kind of play it by ear, see what happens. Maybe DJ Chark comes out with an 11 target game and we can look to him as like a possible wide receiver 3 or flex option in the following game. But you can have no confidence in them with the new quarterback.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to the Chiefs. And I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire owners, which we are Clyde Edwards-Helaire owners, I think have to be concerned. In Le'Veon Bell's first game, only 47% of the running back carries went to CEH. In this game against the Jets, and I know it was a blowout and everything, but only 31% of the running back carries go to CEH. So, I have concerns. I also have concerns that if they get to the goal line, which they didn't even need to get to in this game because they were scoring from everywhere, but if they get to the goal line, it's probably going to be Le'Veon too. So I have concerns. The other thing I saw that was encouraging was a roll bump for Mecole Hardman. 31 routes on 42 Mahomes dropbacks, 21% target share, better usage than Mecole Hardman has seen all season. What did you see out of the Chiefs' kind of predictable demolition of the Jets?
Yeah, these running back touch counts have been heavily influenced by like game circumstance over the past 2 weeks. And we saw even Darrell Williams getting in this game. DeAndre Washington got in the previous game. But these teams just have not been able to keep it close against the Chiefs. And therefore, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell have combined for 20 touches or something over the last 2 weeks. Now they face the Panthers. The Panthers hemorrhage rushing production. I think that we should see both of those guys in the 12 to 16 touch range this particular week.
Yep. The Las Vegas Raiders, we already talked about in the Cleveland section, but in this ugly, windy game, as Evan mentioned, Josh Jacobs gets 31 carries. And as the schedule gets softer now, Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, Falcons, Jets agree that he's a pretty good buy low candidate there. And I think Darren Waller as well is pretty interesting down the stretch. We'll see if they get Bryan Edwards back, but I think the Nelson Aguilar thing was just I know it was a bad spot for Nelson Aguilar, but still, he was like 9% owned in the Millie Maker, which was just, I don't know where people got that from. Let's go to the Chargers. I don't know where this one came from, man. Troymaine Pope pops up out of nowhere, 25 out of 87 snaps, 29% of the running back carries, 54% of the running back targets. We already had this issue of trying to decide between Justin Jackson and Josh Kelly, and we talked about on Sunday morning how we preferred Justin Jackson for the pass game role. That proved to be the right take. But if we're going to add in Troymaine Pope here, we have a serious problem. What do you think made them add in Troymaine Pope here? Do you think that's what's going to happen going forward?
Yeah, I messaged some Chargers beat writers yesterday about this situation, and I was like, are they down on Josh Kelly? And they were like, no, it was a hot hand situation with Troymaine Pope. But still, Troymaine Pope came out of nowhere, was activated off the practice squad recently, and all of a sudden he had a really big role. And then he could have even gotten more usage, but he suffered a concussion late in the game. There was a report that Anthony Lynn said that Troymaine Pope did not have a concussion, but the beat writer said that he actually does have a concussion. So he's going to be in the protocol this week. Josh Kelly has made a lot of mistakes. He's fumbled too much. And I think that there is, it's not unreasonable to think that Troymaine Pope, if healthy and if he keeps playing well, because he played really well. I was watching this game, Troymaine Pope looked shot out of a cannon. And that's not something that, we've played him in preseasons past, and he never looked that good. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Still, Justin Jackson, I think, is the clear favorite for touches in this backfield. And he's going to be a reliable RB2 play going forward. Justin Herbert remains awesome. But yeah, I like this offense. I like the way that this offense is coming together. Now they play the Raiders. The Raiders can't get any pressure on the quarterback, dead last in the NFL in quarterback hit rate. So I'm expecting another good showing from the Chargers offense.
Yeah, Ben Keenan Allen, another big volume game, now at 12.8 targets per game, 33% share, which is outrageous with Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen's full games with Herbert.
Oh, I wanted to say one more thing I think that Hunter Henry is the buy low target in all of season long right now. He has not gotten to 40 yards since I think week 2. But he's top 6 among tight ends at routes run, top 9 in catches and targets. He's only got 1 touchdown. He's historically been a pretty good touchdown scorer. So I think he's going to experience some real positive touchdown regression in the second half of the year. His bye is out of the way. Justin Herbert balling. If you need tight end help, I think you look directly at the season-long owner in your league who has Hunter Henry right now.
That's interesting. Okay, let's go to Miami. And it was Tua's first start. Tua only throws for 93 yards on 22 pass attempts. Certainly nothing to write home about, but he didn't need to because their defense went absolutely ham, scores a couple touchdowns, special teams. Miami wins, so great for Tua. Now, he will need to spread his wings more, I assume, against Arizona. I didn't, the concerns I had about, Devontae Parker and Preston Williams and Gesicki going from Ryan Fitzpatrick to Tua, I think manifested a little bit. But again, he only had 22 pass attempts. What did you see out of Tua's first NFL start?
Just real tentative. Seemed like he lacked confidence, lacked comfort in the pocket. That can happen against teams with Aaron Donald on them. But I think that you can't really have any level of confidence in any of the pass catchers for Miami, which, by the way, just traded Isaiah Ford to the Patriots. But you can't have any confidence in Devontae Parker. He'll be matching up with Patrick Peterson too, in all likelihood, in the next game. I think that the only guy you can really have confidence as a skill position play in fantasy right now is Myles Gaskin, who continues to see, ample receiving game work and ample carries, and Jordan Howard continues to be a healthy scratch.
The New England Patriots, as you mentioned, just gave up undisclosed per Schefter right now to get Isaiah Ford, who is kind of funny because I know you've compared Isaiah Ford to Mohamed Sanu, and Mohamed Sanu is who the Patriots traded for last year. A second-round pick, laughably gave up a second-round pick to get Mohamed Sanu. I mean, what Belichick said after the Bills game, which they had a chance to win actually if Cam doesn't fumble late, but Belichick said, he was like, look, we went all in to win the Super Bowl. We've had really good teams the last 5 years, and now, we're left with kind of a shitty team. I mean, that's basically what he said. And I mean, he knows it. He knows that they're kind of a shitty team right now, but, this kind of trading for Isaiah Ford, I don't think that's going to really move the needle at all. What did you see out of the Patriots' loss in Buffalo?
Not great outside of Damian Harris. And Damian Harris is going to be set up for success again on Monday night against the Jets, because the Jets have been bad against the run, number one. Number two, they've traded away two of their best run defenders in Avery Williamson and Steve McClendon over the past couple of weeks. Damian Harris still – did he get any receiving usage? No, nothing.
No, he has like the pure Sony Michel role. Like literally when he's in the game, they're running the ball.
Right. So he's going to be highly, highly touchdown dependent. But if there was ever a week to play him, it's going to be against the Jets.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the Jets, Denzel Mims, I was excited. I was like, man, we got it. Denzel Mims had 2 catches for 42 yards in the first quarter. Finishes the game with 2 catches for 42 yards on 3 targets, even though he ran a route on every single one of Darnold's dropbacks. And maybe we should have seen that coming more given Braxton Berrios. I mean, we were on Braxton Berrios, but maybe we should have prioritized Berrios over Mims more just because of how this offense goes with Jarvis Landry and Adam Gase, with Jamison Crowder, and now with Berrios. I mean, these guys are seeing double-digit targets almost every time they step on the field. So as we wait for updates on Crowder and Perriman, that's at least something to keep in mind. Also, like, one thing about Jets in garbage time, it's like they're not even trying. Like, they're handing the ball to Frank Gore down 25 points to the Chiefs in the third quarter, So, like, yeah, it's great to kind of project garbage time. I really, really, really try not to do it in DFS. I really, really, really try not to rely on it, especially with stuff like this Jets stuff, because, I mean, they're not even trying to, like, do anything. So, anyways, what did you see out of the Jets game in Kansas City?
The Jets offense has been even worse since they gave play calling duties to Dowell Loggins. I mean, it's a disaster. They're not unleashing LaMichael Pirine like we might have hoped.
Yeah. Steelers are 7-0, man. Steelers come back from a 17-7 deficit at halftime in Baltimore. I think the fantasy takeaway is again, for me, as I've talked about, and why I didn't play Chase Claypool that 1 week, is I think it's really difficult to project target shares among wide receivers. Deontay did get hurt briefly, but he was only hurt for like 1 drive. But we see Juju and Claypool combined for 17 targets. We see James Washington and Deontay combined for 4. So I think it's just hard on a week-to-week basis. At this point, I might actually feel best about Juju, even though his routes are so close to line of scrimmage. There's not a huge ceiling, but I feel best about Juju. Claypool is obviously an absolute beast. They do get Cowboys, Bengals, Jaguars coming up. I mean, by the way, Cowboys announced, or there's rumor they're going to start Cooper Rush. Steelers defense this week is the most in the history of DraftKings, $4,900 to play the Steelers defense on DraftKings this week. But anyways, what do you see out of the Steelers? Big win for them over their rival Ravens.
Yeah, I think you touched on pretty much all in the entire passing game, except for maybe Ebron. And Ebron has settled in as a pretty consistent tight end one play every week. I mean, we talked a lot in the offseason about how there were a lot of candidates to, like, tight end 2 candidates to jump into the tight end 1 range, and a lot of them have not done that. But Ebron has done that, and he was like the cheapest of that big tight end 2 tier.
Yeah.
So he's turned out to be a pretty nice value. James Conner didn't have a big game against Baltimore, but did get 18 touches again. And his workload is very, very safe. Benny Snell did not touch the ball against the Ravens.
Yeah, and I think like James Conner is better than David Montgomery, but like he's still not going to excite anybody from an explosiveness perspective, but he will. I mean, Cowboys, Bengals, Jaguars coming up. I mean, it's time for James Conner to have some big games. Tennessee Titans is the last one we're going to do today. Adam Humphries got hurt in this game, but still, I didn't see this Corey Davis game coming. On 10 targets, Corey Davis goes off for 8, 128, 1. Really big game for Corey Davis. Meanwhile, A.J. Brown, just 7 targets, 424, 1. A.J. Brown keeps scoring touchdowns. It's just, he's not seeing spikes because he's only seeing 7 targets in a game. And then Jonnu, I think, was a disappointment. Only 2 targets for Jonnu. But you know what you're getting into when you play Titans pass catchers. There are games where Ryan Tannehill is only going to throw the ball 18 times. And this kind of, if Corey Davis takes them all, well, then we have a problem. What do you see out of the Titans game? And then we're going to get out of here.
Yeah, I didn't expect a big game there necessarily from Corey Davis, but he's been good in basically every game that he's played so far this year. His worst game was 5 catches for 69 yards, and he's had a couple of 100-yard games. He was a player that the Titans did not exercise his 5th-year option. This is his contract year, and he's come on as a factor and a big reason why the Titans passing game, I think, has maintained or even taken a step forward from last year. They got the Bears coming up, so probably a step back game for the Titans passing game, but a good matchup for Derrick Henry, who continues to see massive workloads on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I actually played Derrick Henry over Kareem Hunt this past week, and I actually think it was right. Like, you can see, even the floor in a game where they get, trucked. I mean, they're just so committed to him, and he didn't even get to really play in the fourth quarter at all. And I never would have thought in a million years that would happen when they played the Bengals. So, Big Dog's floor, it's just way higher than people think. All right. Anyways, that is going to do it for the AFC Team by Team Pods. We'll be back on Friday for the Makisupa show, Saturday for Establish the Million, Sunday for Wake and Rake, Sunday for the last minute live stream. Appreciate each and every one of you for being subscribers. Hope everybody is doing well, staying safe out there in this election season. For Evan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.